Diablo 4 has changed so much that it's not even the same experience I had a week ago. And in fact, in a week from the video dropping today, it could be a completely different experience then. And that is due to hotfix after hotfix, patch notes after patch notes, adjusting the game to Blizzard's philosophy. So for those of you that haven't been following Blizzard's hotfixes and patch notes, Blizzard's new design philosophy for Diablo 4 revolves around two basic principles. The first, the game is too easy. How do we know this? Well, buffing health values in later world tiers, nerfs to the strongest builds including Whirlwind Bard, Twisting Blades Rogue, and Pulverized Druid at the time, and any new build like Werewolf Tornado, any sort of penetrating shot build that might be getting stronger, any sort of Hoda or Whirlwind Bard might be resurfacing. All of those you could expect to be nerfed down to essentially the power level of the Sorcerer or Necromancer, because those classes don't seem to be touched yet. And yet, if we all get nerfed down to Sorcerer or Necromancer, and then they still don't like it, you could potentially see nerfs for every class going forward. The second design philosophy that they're working around is the longevity of the game. They want it to be way longer, and it's too short at the current moment. Now, I'll talk about pros and cons of each of these, but for example, for the longevity, they continuously nerf spawn rates of every single dungeon that basically anyone had come out with. Whether it was a content creator, whether someone was actually streaming the game, the meta is the meta, and that is what people will do despite what Blizzard does. For example here, yesterday we were farming Ruins of Eridu. It got nerfed yesterday. The day before that, we were farming Champion's Demise. It got nerfed the day before that. The day before those, we were farming Ironhold and Moggen's Works, and those all got nerfed. Moggen's Works was at 35+ million XP per hour due to how insane the elite packs were if you were in a good group. Ironhold was 30 to 35 million. Champion's Demise, if you were in a good group, could be 30 to 35 million. Ruins of Eridu was 20 to 25 million. It was already a step down from these ones. And yet every single one of those got nerfed. Blind Burrows looks like it got nerfed a little bit as well. And yet every single one of these is going to get nerfed. In fact, because they've already stated in this specific line of the hotfix, we are standardizing density of elite monsters so that no particular dungeon is clearly more efficient. You can expect the worst dungeon on this map, or an average dungeon, to be the best that you could possibly be. They haven't nerfed all of them, and in fact, we all are going to be coming out with new spots. That's just how it works, right? People are going to be running them, and they're going to get nerfed no matter what. That's just how, design development works in a live service game. And eventually, there's going to be every dungeon kind of similar playing field. If this is the case, then we are going to spend a ton more time in the game reaching level 100. Again, if we return back to some of the XP values, Champion's Demise is the one that Rob used to get to level 100. It was averaging 31 million XP per hour, but you can get upwards of 35 million if you have a really strong team. And if that's 35 million, and Ruins of Eridu was 20 to 25 million, that's already about a 30% decrease. And then they nerfed Ruins of Eridu because it's too strong. You can expect the next dungeons to maybe be 15 to 20 million, and then they nerf that, then it's maybe 10 to 15 million. You're already seeing maybe like a 60 to 70% reduction of XP rates, which will then cause you to spend 60 to 70%. That's not exactly how it works, but roughly 60% more time leveling up to 100, okay? That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Now, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing really depends on your perspective. Some of the pros include things like, well, more content becomes more viable. For example, I think that their core goal is actually to reach renown being the best XP farming in the game. Meaning running around to do every single random dungeon is actually going to be better for you to do rather than resetting the dungeons and going through that process, because you're also progressing through renown. Some people don't like the renown system. They don't like the tracking through each dungeon because they just want to kill monsters. So this could potentially be a con for you, but I think this ends up being a pro for most casual players because, well, every piece of content seems relatively the same. The second pro is that group play is going to be a little bit reduced compared to solo play. From when it was a week ago to now. Group play is still going to be good and better than solo play, but it's not going to be so much better where it's like you're getting 2 or 3 times the XP. You're able to split up across the map and complete a dungeon from one corner to the other and share the renown. That is a pretty insane mechanic right now, and I absolutely think that Blizzard's going to be nerfing that, okay? So another pro would be that group play isn't so devastatingly good that solo play feels a little bit worthwhile, because I did feel that way. I wouldn't want to grind XP unless I had a group with me. But those are the only real pros that I can see. And in fact, if I was in Blizzard's shoes, well, they would say the pro is that they want the players to play how they want to play the game, which isn't necessarily a pro. Let's talk about some of the cons. The first obvious con, and one of the biggest complaints that I've seen in a lot of the comment section, is that some players got to benefit from this and some other players did not. This is preseason, some of the races going on and some of the grinding going on. The people who played most the first day got to get way more ahead, not because they're just playing, but because they got to play with the best methods that were 2 to 3 times as good as the ones that are active now. The second con I've seen so many people point out is that a lot of people wanted to go ahead and experiment with the stronger builds, the overpowered builds, the fun aspect of getting stronger. Because in this game, there's really 2 ways that you get a big boost in power due to the leveling scaling system. World Tier 3 when you first enter, and World Tier 4 when you first enter. That is because you get a sacred or ancestral gear, and you start to formulate your build, and you start to become way, way stronger. Now, with this, you really don't feel like you're getting over that hump and getting to a really powerful place necessarily when the builds are significantly reduced. Now, not to say that a lot of these changes weren't necessary, like Edge Masters being bugged and chaining together not working as literally intended is a little bit different, right? And potentially some of the ridiculously strong builds that are literally doing in the review build, like Whirlwind, billions of damage, yes, these all seem like reasonable nerfs. But when they bring down the power level of basically everyone so that, well, the strength of the builds are all reduced, a lot of people have found that to be less fun. And the third thing that I've seen a lot of people mention, and this is arguably the most important one, is that Blizzard doesn't seem to want a ton of density of monsters in any scenario, really. Hull Tide zones, there's a lot of downtime of grabbing on your mount and moving to the next pack. Dungeons, most dungeons now with the less elite density are going to have that same kind of feel where you have to travel to between packs. And if they remove the reset dungeon mechanics, or they make every dungeon equal and they encourage you to go to each dungeon, guess what? We have to teleport, travel to that dungeon, do that dungeon. There's a lot of downtime when people just want to slay monsters in an ARPGs. All of these are reasonable criticisms and definite cons of kind of the design philosophy that Blizzard's going down. And I totally understand where people are coming from. Again, these are the main criticisms that I've seen out there from you all. But I'm curious to hear what you all have to say, and whether or not there are some criticisms or potentially pros that I did not mention in this video. So let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. And I'm very curious to see the future of Diablo. I am more excited and anxious about the first season than ever before because of all the changes they've already made. And we already know that because they're making all these changes, we could see a completely different Diablo 4 when Season 1 launches than what we're seeing right now. And I would expect that to be the case. See you for the next one.